Okay. So yeah, it looks like we are going live now. So let me take a moment to bring the stream up to check the quality of my audio. Let's just see if it... Yep, we are now live. Now I just gotta share this link to like Facebook, etc. And how's everyone doing this night tonight? That's my question for tonight. Okay. Share this both to Facebook. Going live now, I'll say. And then to my poetry page, Facebook page. And we're just gonna have like a fireside discussion / chat about poetry, and then I'll read poems from my book. So many good ideas of what I can do with my like entrepreneurship with poetry, but like the only thing stopping you really is your imagination. Just let me... Now Twitter is the next place I'm going to share this. Going live now. Come hear me read some poems. Okay, that's a good thing. Where else is there to share this? Like, I don't even know. Let's see. The stream's current bit rate is lower than the recommended bit rate. What does that even mean? Let's see if we can turn it up a little. Stream output. Streaming bit rate. What's the recommended? Is it even going to tell me? 4,500. Okay. Let's bring that up to 4,500. On this setup, I swear, it's taking too much of my time, but in the meantime, let's just get this set up. Yep, we are now set up. And so what I want to do, I didn't really come here with a plan besides to read from Last and Eternal Fire book. But other than that, it's going to be doing some... As long as the audio doesn't drop, we'll be good. So let's see. The stream is giving me another error saying that the bit rate is not recommended. Go. Okay. Yep, now everything seems to be good. Now let's just... I guess we can begin the quote show now. Looks like we are... So let's see. Let's make sure everything's muted here. And yep. So yeah, what I like to do today is just read some books, even though I don't have a webcam that works. That's kind of a problem. But as you can see, the icon for this stream is a picture of Walt Whitman, who was one of the greatest American poets of all time, really an inspiration, often called the father of free verse. And I even wrote this book. He lived in the 19th century. So what I did is I took the character as if he was a character and made him live in the 21st century, and took him from his place in history and put him in a different place in history. And he's so influential that like the world wouldn't even be the same without him if he didn't live today. So like when you do that, you really have to make the character even more superb, because he's going to be a revolutionary character regardless of what happens. Sort of like he had like this huge ego, not an ego, but like a desire to have ambitious poetic works out there, and he was pretty much the most ambitious poet of all time, pretty much. And with his Leaves of Grass is actually one of the pretty much on the longer side of books, even though the first edition was a little bit shorter. But all of them were really all the editions were really ambitious, just because of the poetical style. It challenged the barriers of stylistic barriers just as much as it challenged social barriers. So let me see if I can find my stream on YouTube here. Poetry live stream. I'm gonna search. I'm probably the only one doing this right now, and that's true. Because when I look myself up, I'm literally the only one. Oh, there's one other person. Poetry Symposium live stream, but I'm pretty much one of the only people doing this. So anyway, it's amazing how out of the whole world, like on YouTube, since YouTube is a global site, that I'd be the only one at any given time doing a live stream on poetry. It's like my moment to shine here. But yeah, I'm just going to be talking until I don't feel like talking anymore. But yeah, the thing is, with these books that I've been writing, they take a lot of work out of me, and it's 3 books a year, so I'm just continuing to push them out. But at the same time, I don't know if I should slow down a little bit, because it's kind of can't really deal with all these books while working a full-time job, and that's what you kind of have to do to live, I guess. But I wish I had a webcam. That's the reason why I'm not doing the showing my face right now. It'd probably be a little more interesting if people could see my face, but I guess hearing my voice will have to suffice for now. But anyway, just getting ready to read from that book I was writing, which is The Last and Eternal Fire. Let me just take this. So I have it. This is a very rough, like, first draft. I have it in a binder that I have all the documents, the pages of the document stored in, and it's only that first poem. So I don't know how long it would take me to read this, but probably would take quite a bit of time. I just wish I had like a social media outlet where I could just share things and have people come to my channel. But for example, my largest, the social media platform I have the biggest following on is Instagram. And the thing is, you can't really have links on Instagram. Let's see. Actually, let me do this. I could share a link to my channel in my bio, and then I'll post it on Instagram to see if people. Thing is, you have to have hashtags usually for Instagram. But let's do this. Link in bio. Let's see. Oh, it doesn't even say, like, when you type on Instagram, it won't let you put the link actually in the bio. It has to be there's like a space for website, not just link. So that's inconvenient, but whatever. Okay. How do I take a picture with the Instagram? This is very confusing. Let's see. Recent. I want to take a new picture. Come on. I guess I'll just have to take it with my camera, and then okay. live on YouTube now discussing poetry and books. Come hang out with me and have a good time. That's what I'll say. I need more hashtags. Poetry, community, poets of Instagram, writer, writing. Let's just see how much this adds to my live stream feed here. Oh, I forgot to say link in bio. Okay, that's settled. So now hopefully we wait for people to click on the link to this channel. Yeah. And yep, I think the first thing we'll do before we get started, let's see, I'm just thinking about how I should approach this document because it's so long. It's 45 pages long without like really spaces between the lines. But yeah, just continuing. So I shared it on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and now hopefully there's some people here. So if in case people don't know, what I was saying is that I was going to read from the manuscript of my new book, which is The Last and Eternal Fire, sequel to a few, like 5 of my other books, which the series is Love Poems at the End of Our Lives, The Last Poem, the penultimate poems, and then there's The Revenant, and there's The Serenity in the Dark, and that really follows the story of this character named Serenity and this other character named Pain, who are like high school students at the time the book starts, and they're dealing with all these problems, including a lot severe bullying, and then eventually the character Serenity is murdered at the end of the book, one of the books, the Love Poems at the End of Our Lives book, and then the last poem is the character Pain lamenting her death and like having this cosmic journey. And the thing with The Last and Eternal Fire, it starts out with this poem from Serenity's perspective, and it does quite exactly the opposite of what the story was for the last poem. So it's kind of like a role reversal in a sense. How you have Serenity mourning, the character Pain mourning the death of Serenity, but then in The Last and Eternal Fire you have Serenity mourning the death of Pain. It's kind of like an alternate universe. So I'm just going to start doing some reading on this. So this is part 1 of The Last and Eternal Fire, and everyone should know that this is a very rough draft of this document, since it's pretty much the first draft of the document that I've put out so far. And let's see, I'm just gonna start reading of this book. So without further ado, part 1, and this is from the perspective of the character Serenity. The rustling of the leaves in the wind, the warmth of the sun against my cheeks. In all these I remember my pain. Long nights, street lights, long ordeals, in which there is violence, devastation, and warmth, disease, and recovery. Your Father was courage in the darkness, who gave his life to save me. Find the balance between mourning and restoration in the new sunrise. Find the balance between desperation and deceit in the chaos inside your dreams. Life hurts immensely. Love hurts like a burning sea, of the last and eternal fire, the first and glorious dusk. The sun sets on the only world we lived in, and we learn to live with loss. And you realize that no matter what you do, there will always be desperation in your despair. Hope, you will wander through the halls of a world that is filled with shadows. You will walk alone through the desolate streets of life. You will create new worlds in your mind, opposed to everything you see. You will dive into the future. You will crave new beginnings. You will be on your pilgrim marathon journey of desperation in the deepest part of the world. You will expire like battle scars, only to heal so soon after. Words will flow from you that no one will hear. Songs will be sung that no one will listen to. In your dreams you come alive. In your life you drink in the despair, and you will not be able to move. You will always desire more than what you have been given. Always want more freedom than the small room the world has become. Always digging with claws deep into the prison walls, trying to claw a path through. I will never be able to say goodbye to my daughter, but many things we are unable to do happen to us without a consent. When I wanted to give up my life, I lost the one I loved instead. When I was falling through eternity, I fell in love with my newborn daughter. I dreamed of love, life, and the creation of every world. Where there was hopelessness, life, and abundant glory. Where there was torture, there is tranquility. Anxiety has gone away and given way to silent, joyful breaths, the kind that welcomes every new moment of life. Because without the life they found, the world is unbelievably dull and impossible to live in. We spread our love thin through the world, like lightning through water, as a storm that illuminates the skies, as a rejection of every extremist politician, as the dawn of the new era of human connection, as the words that flow from me without knowing how to stop expressing them. When I was so much younger, my eyes were innocent. But if the light of my body is my eyes, then how great is the darkness inside of me? We are here together, fighting, trembling, frightened, shaking uncontrollably, aroused by sudden feelings of fear and dread, desperate to find ourselves in a world where we know the true meaning of touch. The truth of love is its communion. The truth of communion is its vigilance. And the joy of vigilance is the bond of the world. When we stand so patiently in the world, ready to fight the vampires that war against our souls, ready to take up the sword of our fathers and run through the world to a place where we will find acceptance as the true kings and queens of worlds that have forgotten about the order of love. My mind, completely flaring with anxious thoughts and emotions, my life filled with encounters with liars, my only desperate hope is to escape from this life and enter a new one in the name of love. We escape from hatred. We imbibe reconciliation, the joy of all things coming together, the way they were always destined to be. The quiet noise of the birds in the morning, habitual, waking me, stirring me to get up and face the 9-to-5 routine, with bravery and the courage of your father. The days when we hope to be free from a lack of expression, a lack of a constant anthem in our own hearts. When we dream about finishing works of art, we are not sure if we will ever have the courage to start. But once the pen hits the paper, we roar our lives across the margins of the page until the book is finished and we have created something which entices you to read it. You're the one I dream of when my heart grows dim. You're the one I feel inside my dreams when all I have is a prayer. Come with me into the night, and we will watch the stars. fly through the sky together. When they fly through the sky, they consistently return to us. Anthems of the last breath of the last of us. We were too short of breath to sing them. As presidents made speeches about their nation, while ignoring those they represented, we continued dreaming about worlds we'd lost in a way that only art could portray. I lay down and dried my eyes from all the tears. I knew that the past could never come back to us, and that we wasted too much of our time trying to recover it, and that there are so many stories that need to be told about what resides in our hearts. How much longer can we live as souls alone? Slogans, branded, brandished, butchered, oversold, oversaid, not believed in. The future we planned for no longer safe. The world we traveled toward was no longer the world we longed for. The economies of our hearts had been destroyed. My destiny is to stay here and mourn, always looking at the walls of these rooms and imagining what it is like to be suffering in a hospital. How much pain can you feel when you are poor or suffering? The greatest joy in the greatest suffering, the greatest exaltation in the greatest of all poverty. The fight will never end, but until the world is destroyed. When we are younger, our words are simpler. Our problems are not understood. Language, mysticism, desperation. We never run out of words. And we never run out of space to write these words. Your blank canvas is the world we live in. Our fight, we will never stop until the world is written over, with the poems we held close into our hearts. Our poems ring true, millions of times over. Scream out your words like the chilling resonance of the echo chamber of your own weapon, the place from which your voice springs. And we hit a rhythm with our words. Our voice springing out from the page, something I have learned, something I have loved. Is how to dream about worlds we would never visit except in dreams. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my place here, everyone. I mourn your father. I discern the truth in quiet rooms. We are all so vastly separated, and I am overexhausted from playing out the same memories in my mind like tapes or CDs we play over and over. My soul is free, was never owned. Free as the breeze, fathomless as the oceans, hotter than the sun, greater than all hardware and software. Understand me on the bleeding pages of my story, contemplate it for a moment, move on, walk away, as the cosmos comes together in unison, echoing the truth in the stars. The light behind the stars floods the fathomless depths of eternity and draws you in closer to those depths. The blood oozes out of us in our eternal suffering. Pain, motionless on the floor of the classroom, as I was pulled kicking and screaming out of those hallways. The desperate times we live in. Let me lay down the truths you never listened to. The love that will never be expressed until it is too late. The nature of existence. How we are all floating through the layers of despair, looking to find the one we love, somewhere in the depths of shadows. How we have no understanding, only helplessness. Sometimes heaven is impossible to place your hope in. The fires of hell are a little too familiar to be a distant demonic fantasy. In this life there are so many tribulations which we all go through together, holding hands. I watched over by what we believe in. If you can completely eviscerate your despair, come and find me, and tell me about the way the world looks afterwards. Kiss me under the light of the moon when we are young. I don't want to be just friends. I want to be something that never ends. The words your father said that echo in my mind forever and hereafter. I inhale loneliness when I am not understood by any soul that hears my words, except as incoherent sentences. Spit out the truth you know, no matter what indignant reaction you get, even if you cannot find the words to express it completely. Poetry is the truth and a dawning of glory. Poetry is the death of a world and the building up of countless greater ones. The sensation we feel now. Come hold on to it before it becomes too late and it is gone. Music is unlike anything else in the world. Art is the strings tying your soul together, that open to let the love come in and out freely. Catch me in the shadows as we sprint back to our home after the longest war, with the greatest unspoken evil. You walk through the city alone at night, and in the morning you call a cab and go to the bus station when you travel to another state, because it is best to have no place to call home. You have become the voice of all the nations, the silent acceptance of all peoples just as they are. You go between them and experience everyone for yourself. You surrender your broken heart and let it be broken millions of times, because you know that a heart broken can be mended and broken infinitely. Because you felt the heartbreak of your brothers and sisters, hope you are the mending of universes that have gone off course, setting them aright. You will be one of the last persons to live and walk this earth, the romance of dying in youth, the drowning and forgetting, your words scattered and burned, withered like the flowers we used to see when we were walking through the park, the lament of youth in its passing, the pressing fear of growing older, moves on forever, forward for eternity, until the mind is no longer cognizant of the obvious truth in the world, that there will be no more miracles. We've exhausted all our chances to ever escape the small room where time relentlessly passes, when loneliness creeps in to visit us, nights coming home to a dark apartment in an even darker city, where the lights have all gone out for the last time. Sitting in the cold room, waiting for the world to come alive again. You grasp hold of the covers, you squeeze them tightly, I feel so dyslexic now, oh my gosh. Vainly hoping that they will warm you, like the touch of another, but all others are gone. During the day, the sun rises, but it is a broken sun. It does not give off nearly as much heat. You walk through the same park again, but all the flowers are wilted. People go through the parks of the world, gather up all the flowers, throw them into the fire, and they are burned for all of eternity. The streets now all empty, cracks into the concrete open wide, and voices from within the earth echo through, expressing thoughts we all knew to be true, but never spoke up about. You leave the city, hoping to find more life in the woods, the nature of the woods. You spoke to the winds, and they didn't speak a sound to you as they did before. The winds of the world had grown completely silent. The animals had all gone. You knew you were at the end of the world. As you walked away from the city, you noticed the skyscrapers had all collapsed, leaving rubble all up and down the streets. You knew... leaving rubble all up and down the streets through which I used to carry you across. You remember the violence you experienced during your life, and you realize that now all of it is over. You won't have to think about the torment of needles piercing your skin. Now you took the needles and ripped them out of your skin violently, so that they would never pierce you again. You were free. Your soul was never owned, bargained for, and would live to see another sunrise, even a colder sunrise. Your father brought me flowers that night, when I was broken, from being lied to and stolen from. He strung truth back together from the tangled web that only two timing tongues can pierce together. He was there in that moment until almost the very end. I remember standing underneath the palm trees, the light breaking through in the winter, dreaming about pain. I remember hiding underneath my covers, seeping further into memory, the chilly wind of the world behind me and ahead of me, everywhere except for underneath my bed sheets, rocked like the oceans, swayed by the wind from our once unshakable foundation, the morning that only comes in the desperation of tragedy, and in this tragedy each morning brings a new nightmare, until the cycle of grief never flows its full course, the cascading darkness that falls over an unsuspecting world, where we sit alone in rooms, never to find the soul of another, never to listen, If the shadows hold me, I fly through their abyss, and am welcomed by them. The music of God urging us forward, while we are overtaken, knowing that this was our destiny, the life we never wanted, separated on opposite ends of eternity. Our hearts incredibly fragile, our lives infinitely broken, our minds set on only truth, in a sea of lies that shift like sea life, finding their own motion, dreaming their own dreams, losing control of our emotions, dreaming on the floor of the subway station, gazing at the trains coming and going. I walk toward the train, seeing him on the other side, and he takes my hand and guides me in a life beyond despair, where despite our failings we come closer and hold on to the truth in our hearts. Your father took my hand and guided me out of the subway station, and we ran together through the streets, as if they were once again thriving. With million months passing, the world changes slowly. He showed me the video of us sitting on the floor of our bedrooms, weeping in the time spent running away from the torment in our hearts. He told me the best parts of our lives were the parts that sung with passion, that without the love of the new morning, we were desperate and we had nothing, and also that though we were lonely, we would not always be alone, and that in the chaos of the passing order of creation, we would all find our place, and that everyone eventually comes full circle to the place they were in before, following deeply in the footsteps of their loved ones. And that in death we all become very compassionate. We watched as you, Hope, traversed the world alone, and the streetlights had not grown any brighter. We saw the wicked politicians threaten to lock all the doors of the world just before the end, so that you could not find anyone you loved. And there was no one to trust and no God to pray to. Just an always present anxiety over a world that was about to be transformed by violence. Those gathering the flowers in the park began to steal all the beauty from the world, starting with the music. They took it, didn't know what it was, and slaughtered it, so that no instrument could be played, and no one would ever know what a song was again. We saw you walking through the outskirts of a lonely nation. You were the only refugee to escape. I saw a single tear fall down your cheek, and you walked toward the ocean, having nowhere else to go. Those who stole the light from the world were approaching, and you did not know what they wanted to take from you. They approached and tried to take the book of poems you wrote about your experience, but they could not. Because poetry exists for all time and eternity. Louder than music, more vibrant than all songs, more glorious than the greatest art of all time. Poetry stands alone in mystery. The love poems you wrote at the end of your life were the greatest that had ever been written. But there were no worlds left to admire them. The people were long gone now, and those who stole the light from the world had taken everything good from the world. Everyone left the world looking for another world. But you still walked these streets, standing in the middle of the oceans, dreaming about the now forgotten memories of our once solid but now fragile future, falling like broken glass onto the kitchen floor of our lives. Gathered up, thrown into the machine, and incinerated forever. No voice could be heard in the world. You were the last one to thrive in the world. So you began to celebrate with the joy... and I lost my place. So you began to celebrate with the joy of your ancestors. You would hear... Who would hear you, but you could not hear them. You spun around in circles, as if the creatures in the sky could hear you, as if in the sudden expression of joy do we become compassionate to the small things around us. You dreamed of the days you would spend away from isolation, but eventually you would not remember what that was like. You would drown in the pool of sweet nothingness for 1,000,000 times before the end of your life. Eventually you discovered that you were the last one who was breathing, and that God would not come back to you. You knew that your world was beautiful. You were making it the world you wanted to be. A new world, a brave world, one with no violence and no death, but it never existed outside your mind. Your mind started to create worlds that were so real because yours was the only mind. As if nothing that is not observed exists at all. Your human heart was the most vibrant, the clearest heart, the most fathomless heart, pierced by the arrow of tragedy. Like your parents, like a night would fall, and the sun would never rise, as it had before ever again. You fell violently into the ground and tasted the dirt. When you arose after you hit the ground, you found yourself ready to confront the world again, wiping the dirt off your shirt, walking again into a world filled with people who did not realize that their world would soon come to an end. You saw those who were preparing to seize the flowers, hiding in secret, but preparing to devastate the world all the same. They were planning in the shadows. You could see the flowers and you relished in them because they reminded you of all the time that had passed. You inhaled the memories they gave you when you were younger and we were still together. You draped yourself in those moments, flowers of funerals, of time past, of lights in the sky, which we thought were only fireworks, but they were bombs that devastated our world. Memories of love given to you and lost because he went away and you never saw him again. Of a conflict in a world where there can only be shadows if you do not shine the light yourself, where no one will hear your voice, where there are desperate lives on the street, where you struggle to discover where your next meal is coming from, how our hollow stomachs filled with pangs and misery, and no way to find food, especially at the end of the world, where everything we do matters, and we have to sit back and think about what we should do, and there is no time to not put out your full effort at anything. These are our last moments. You walk the avenues where I once walked, and you echo your voice louder than ever. You sit on the bar stool with a beer bottle in hand, watching the news, and you see the reports on the news, advertisements that money can buy happiness. You dance with a stranger. These are the worst moments of our life. When we know the future has not prepared its... Let me read this again. When we know the future has not prepared itself as a welcoming home, but instead greets us with unquenchable flames and an insatiable lust to destroy and make our lives miserable, destroy everything we have so far built. How the politicians lied, saying they wouldn't silence their opponents. But when the sword is in their hands, it only takes a moment to raise the sword and strike off the head of innocence. Meanwhile, words flow from your pen that no one will read, because everyone was focusing their attention elsewhere, on the constant news they were fed, not believing anything different from the narrative they were fed, always inhaling the gasoline, getting ready to come home and drink a match. Without a guide in the world, there was no anchor to hold on to. There were moments when you moved to a new city. You came to the hotel room, closed the door, and didn't let anyone in. The joy of finding love in the darkness of the room, the exhilaration of the moment when we touched. My purpose in this life is to get as close to the sunlight as possible. It is better to be you than to imitate someone else. It is better to drink from the empty bottle than it is to lose yourself in someone else's control. I will never be owned. Now here I am, free as the wind, greater than all sensations, bitter or sweet, somewhere in between, somewhere unable to see, somewhere across the oceans, in a small room dreaming, infinitely more to write about each day. There are curtains that are drawn back, and through the window we see the sun piercing the trees. The truth and love, unspeakable, unmovable, always, forever, piercing through the clouds of uncertainty. Where the world is unsure, love is absolutely certain. How can we ever know when we will escape from the shell we have found ourselves in by mistake, except by grasping onto love and never letting go of it, of taking love and holding it, of gripping the love tighter in the ocean of our own dreams, the music that surrounds us when we are alone together in our room, whispering quietly, dreaming softly, forever and always encapsulated in a moment where we believe we will never be happy again, The days pass quickly, while students walk through the hallways and the homeless tread the streets of a city that will not for much longer exist. If you can hear my voice, sing the anthems of the worlds I am regurgitating. Come to me with all you are, and I will open up the secrets of the wind, passing by your face, always forcing you in the motion of the world. Come be with me as the blinding light of the sun flies into our hearts, guiding us to a place we need to go. Sitting there absolutely alone, we were together for such a short time. The floor gives out underneath my feet, and I start sinking to a place I wish I would never fall. I stitched my soul together from the piece of your heart you gave me. I love you more than you could comprehend. I craved images where we would sit together and we would be thankful. Come here with me in this moment, where my words are enshrined on the page. Will soon so much come to life. My head filled with negative emotions, my life overcome by a mystical force. I walked out of the world, craving connection with ghosts underneath my feet. The crowd cheers as the story unfolds. I believe in the light that guides the nations. I dream that you are here. The flow and movement of my words. All I want is to be understood, heard. Contemplate my words for a few moments and take my one last breath and know the world didn't become as dark as we thought it would be. Your love tattooed on my heart. Your joy grafted into my skin, into my cheeks. Your doves flying peaceably in the sky. We have no idea how they got here or where they will be in the next 4 years. The moment when we hold love so close inside our hearts, and all we dream about is being away from the torture of the past. Dream with me this night and fall asleep for forever at least. Talk with me for hours in this dream. Fly with me as far as we can. Focus for a moment on the things we love. Chaos within the world of desperate noise, of clamoring politicians who enslaved us, and we could not easily escape from their grasp, except when we locked the doors to our rooms and relentlessly wrote the story of the end of our lives, of all things ending, of the triumph of death. I sat with you in those hallways. I fell with you and sank to the bottom. I loved you every new moment, and every passing day was a new miracle. Give me the soul you hid away from everyone else. Show it to me, and I will feel it. Comprehend you in my sacred places, holding the match in the merciless downpour. Across the room at the party, you look at me. We know how much we want each other. We fall head over heels after each other. We break through with our passionate praise of the bright, glorious world that we found by accident. Memory flooding every empty space, each moment of my life filling up the margins of my brain that never escape my mind, no matter how much tension builds up. The glorious light we found, we were never owned, free as the ever-flowing breeze. The breeze calms me through every moment in which I am no longer sure of the future. We cry out in the night when no one but the breeze is there to carry our voices, to carry our voices, music always dawning. Its sun never sets, unstoppable, patient above all things, watchful, waiting for you to breathe out again and mingle your own free-flowing voice with the current. And deep inside you is that same network of music flowing on forward, your emotions forever flowing through you. Tonight, you eagerly await the new creation of the music that will flow all throughout the world. In this way, your voice is free. Those who went through the world, masked and dressed all in black, approached, as fierce, violent, and more threatening than any nightmare. They only desired one more thing, to seize the breath within your soul. They reached deep inside you, attempting to stuff it out, but nothing worked. Hope, they could not get hold of it. And once again you escaped their prison and stood on a mountain, watching the meteors fall, as they cascaded into the hearts of cities. All of the remorse inside you went away, knowing your life was lived with the grace it was meant to carry. Joyfully and gloriously patient, you waited for the end of all time. And yeah, I think that's enough for this live stream. It's been like 14 viewers so far. And and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their night. So I'm gonna bookmark this. Might go over this later. I was just really reading the poetry I was working on so far. So yep, that